What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Strange New Show. Keith and Mike, you know what we do? We watch Star Trek Strange New Worlds here for your enjoyment. Today, we are talking about tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. You know I love those long titles because I have to change the font size. Definitely not a fan. You know, tomorrow and tomorrow is fine. That's fine. But yeah, lots of stuff to talk about here. We're time traveling. How's it going, Mike?
It's going great, Keith. Today is the show proper and maybe another show. All kinds of things bustling.
It's Indictment Day number 3.
And also I'm reading a book called Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, which is interesting.
Are you really?
Yeah, that's some synchronicity. And then on top of that, Keith, there is congressional testimony now that perhaps the Prime Directive is a real thing and that we just haven't communicated with the aliens because we're too dumb.
I mean, that would make perfect sense. Yeah. I mean, if I were aliens and if I were aliens who were not malevolent, who wanted to come to the Earth and steal whatever resources we haven't already destroyed, I wouldn't want to talk to us because, we're not ready. We're not ready.
It does explain, however, those couple of listens we get on our podcast every week that are non-Earthbound. I mean, those make a lot more sense now. You know what I mean?
On the Spotify metrics.
Yeah, that IP address that's all in just like bizarre characters, and now
it's just like the Matrix font.
Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
No, this was a good episode. I got cozy for it over there on the couch. Change of scenery. You know, you can watch me watch every episode of this show and Deep Space Nine on Patreon.com/K&M. We got a little more comfortable this week. It was a good episode. I text Keith because I'm so curious as to what he thinks. Because to me, I think this episode this week both shows the kind of risks you can take when you do it a non-serialized sort of focus, and also maybe, in my opinion, the ramifications of doing those types of episodes when you only have 10 episodes to play with. What does that mean for the whole picture? I have so much to talk about, Keith. I'm so excited to be here with you.
Lots to talk about.
Let's do it not for 2 hours this week.
You know, right. I also sat down and I watched it as a fan first, and then went back and noted it. That is definitely the best way to do it. So, you know, Charlie and I sat there and watched it, and we have lots of thoughts. But before we do that, we must talk about last week, which is not the Broken Circle. I just didn't update my my sheet here. What was last week? What was the name of the episode last week?
Aspartame?
Don't aspirate aspartame. That's exactly right. And so your ratings came in higher than ours. Jason Moe gave it a 91, and Worf's Big Ol' Boot Shivs gave it an 89 for an average of 90. Folks, leave your ratings. Leave your ratings down below. There's a million people more watching than leaving ratings, so I know you're watching. And
maybe not a million, but we're getting there.
Yes, we would be having a whole different discussion if we had a million people watching. Nonetheless, thank you so much for participating. If you want us to read your comment here online, you can leave a super tip, and then we will read pretty much whatever
within reason.
Then, well, I mean, and chances are I always do them cold, so you can probably fit pretty much anything in there, and I'm just like, not Ron Swanson, the Anchorman, Bill Daly? No.
Brock?
Brock Lesnar?
No, it's Brock something.
Brock Peters? No, that's the other guy.
That's Steve Carell. Anyway, listen. That actually brings me to a point I want to make. I don't think I need to make it, but I'm going to make it. You know, Keith and I are, as he mentioned, fans of the shows, of each other. The watching of the show was sort of just a framing device for us to do a podcast 12 times a week. And never take anything we're saying seriously. We're almost always joking. Some episodes were a little bit more analytical, and some episodes were a little more goofy. You're gonna get the spectrum of stuff. Just come in with a sense of humor is all I ask of you. Okay, that's it.
Wow. Okay. I don't know. I have a feeling Mike's having feelings this morning.
No. I'm just saying. Like I know. That's all I'm saying. I'm saying what I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
Is don't come at me, bro. Is what you're saying.
I mean, I guess, in a way.
All right. Well, let us get into talking about the episode, shall we?
Yeah, man. I'll hit the button.
Tomorrow was aired last month. I know you thought I was going to say tomorrow, but no, it was aired last month, and this, of course, was June 29th, 2023. The top song continued to be... And I actually did look it up. Yeah, he is that problematic guy.
Yeah, it is him. Right.
So maybe, you know...
So I made I'm just making his voice a little more demonic now.
A little dumber. All right, well, you know... I think maybe for as long as he's number one, maybe we'll go silent next week because you don't deserve it.
Number one is number one.
No, being number one does not justify us supporting you because you could be the number one monster.
You know what else is number one, Keith?
I don't believe in magic, but a few times in my life, I've seen things.
Yeah, indeed. That is Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, which took in $60 million. I would take it, but I believe that was a disappointment for them. I'm looking forward to seeing the movie, though. I really am. When it gets to me.
I'll only say this, Keith. The movie and this episode share more in common than you'd think.
Ooh, okay. All right. There we go. So the weekly world news headline from 20 years ago. Look out. Because there's a merman in the water. It's just one more reason to stay out of it. I know it's crazy hot today, but don't go in the water because there might be a horrifying merman there causing trouble.
You know, Keith, or you could watch what me and CEO Jen were watching with our coffee this morning, which is The Little Mermaid, which is equally horrifying. Also, folks, it's summertime, and you know, things are crazy, and you could take all the different things happening in politics and the news and have your pick at things that are a harbinger of the end times, right?
Oh, yeah, no.
But the one I want to pick this week's...
Okay, what is your harbinger of the end times?
I heard a report, because of like drug trafficking and muling and all kinds of things taking place off the East Coast in the Gulf and whatnot, they have been finding sharks that are eating cocaine. We've got cocaine sharks, folks. So if things weren't bad enough,
I mean, Elizabeth
sharks.
Banks, get on that because I really liked Cocaine Bear. Let's do it. Whew. All right, let's get to a happier place, a cleaner place, a friendlier place like Toronto, and talk about who directed Tomorrow. That is Amanda Rao, who last directed The Elysian Kingdom.
Oh, that was a good one.
Oh, I hated it. But this is different. It was written by David Reed, who wrote this and the upcoming episode Lost in Translation. You want to know what is never lost in translation? The support that we get from the people who support us at patreon.com/K&M Mike. Who's doing it and what are they getting?
Well, Keith, I'm going to start with the what are they getting because I now have absolute anxiety reading this because I can't say people's names right. As hard as I actually try, I can't actually do it. But what I can do is watch Star Trek every week. That's easy. And you can join me every week. I post both the audio version and the visual version of me watching these episodes in real time. And sometimes you get some pretty funny takes. In addition to that, we're watching all kinds of fun stuff with our patrons and the picnics. We did one with Star Trek V. We're about to do, I think, Wrath of Khan since clearly we need to do it.
I think we might have to dive into the Khan's verse. We have to watch Space Seed and then Wrath of Khan.
We've also watched some animated series. We're going to do that again. We do TNG. We'll do some of that again. You never know it's like a fun little surprise toy. You never know what's going to drop on there. And you can join the team at patreon.com/K&M like these fine folks: Bryant, Kimball, Beersock, Casey Clark, Jason Moe, Andrew Hayes. Show me those toonies. Jorge Navoa. Old school Jorge Navoa, and the Mysterious Household, Worf, Big Up Out Shivs, Charles Babbage, Richard Coleman, CRM Productions, Nikolay Ivanovich, Lobachevsky, Delusions at Noon, Steve Brown, YouTube viewer, JD Makes, Colin Dagan, Chris Mitchell, CRM, Pat, and Joshua Cronin. They send us stuff in the mail, and there have been plenty of other patrons who have not been able to sustain their membership, but they're welcome to Pip and Pop anytime, just like you are. Patreon.com/K&M.
Mike, this is for the other show, but you know that Joshua Cronin just sent me a behind-the-scenes Deep Space Nine book.
Wait, don't we have that though? We have The Companion. There's
another
one
about the making of.
Can I read that one?
Well, it's only the first 2 seasons, so yes, you can, but you got to come to my house to do it.
Because
right now it's sitting on my piano.
Oh, interesting, Josh. Interesting.
Yeah,
my mail's been pretty dry, unlike the air. All right.
We're also getting a care package from JD this week, so look out.
Somebody sent me cookies. Well, it was my mother-in-law, but cookies got sent here.
Totally. Should we add her to the Patreon?
It's more for sustaining memberships. I'm gonna need a little bit more cookies and a little bit more often.
Wow. Well, she provided you your wife, who was
that is true.
I won't make the obvious. All right, let us move forward. It rhymes with cookies.
You want to make any more Hitler references, Keith, while you're at it?
Well, we cut that. It's so
okay.
funny. That's going to be such a non sequitur because you definitely cut that.
I hope you wrote down the timestamp because I'm very busy today.
Oh, I'm sorry about your problems. It's about 15 minutes. All right, it is time for everybody's favorite segment. Mike?
Keith, waste your time with trivial trivia.
All right, here we are in Trivial Trivia. There's a lot of cool stuff this week. Starting with Kirk's mispronouncing La'an's surname as Noonien-Soong.
I heard that.
Which, of course, is a big ol' Easter egg, because Dr. Noonien-Soong is the cyberneticist who created Data. And lore and before a next gen, but Dr. Soong also has ancestors in the 21st and 22nd centuries that were involved in eugenics and augments, i.e. Khan. So there's someday in like 2040 or so, when we get to Enterprise, we're gonna meet him. And there's a good chance maybe Brent Spiner plays every single one of them. And I think in a lot of ways, they're all played by Brent Spiner, because Brent Spiner, he plays Data in this beautiful innocence and openness, but Brent Spiner wants to play the bad guy. That is 100% what he wants to do for fun. All right, so Pelia, of course, portrayed by Carol Kane, tries to brush off La'an and Kirk by saying, "We're closed." In The Princess Bride, Carol Kane played Valerie, wife of Miracle Max, who tried to brush off Ingo and Fezzik with the same line. So there you go.
Great scene. Maybe the best scene of that movie.
Well, I haven't seen it in so long. Right? Really, it's one of those things that, like, if you're a 90s theater kid, we watched every single time we got together, so I got so sick of it, and now I haven't seen it in like 30 years. I probably should watch it. So Kirk says, in the beginning of it, "Hey, this looks like New York City." And La'an responds, "It's Toronto." This, of course, is an allusion to the fact that Toronto is often filmed as a stand-in for New York City in many shows and films, which we clearly clock all the time because guess what? It's way cleaner than New York City. Mm-hmm. So in this timeline, Kirk is not born on Earth, but on the starship USS Iowa, as opposed to the state Iowa. And of course, Kirk exclaims the line, "I'm from space," made me laugh. This echoes Kirk's line from Star Trek 4, "No, I'm from Iowa. I only work in outer space." It's all coming together. And of course, this was originally planned to take place in New York City, but it was too expensive. And I think they decided, as opposed to doing what everybody else does, shoot in Toronto, pretend it's New York City, and have like one stock footage of Times Square, they're like, let's be in Toronto. Toronto's an amazing city. So there you go. Our guest stars this week, of course, are Paul Wesley as Kirk, Adelaide Kane as Sarah, and Carol Kane as Pelia. I do not believe they're related, despite the Kane of it all.
Are they related to, good God, it's Kane?
It might be. Yes. Mm-hmm. That's a wrestling reference.
Yeah, this episode might just be a slobber knocker, Keith.
Business is about to pick up. All right, so let's go to...
We had such a good Deep Space Nine this week. It only stands to reason. We'd have a flaming dumpster fire of this one.
Well, you know,
it's early.
We only have about 90 minutes of good material a week, but we record like 4 hours.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's the problem. All right, so let's head into our screening room, shall we?
Let's go ahead and do it. This one, ba-da-da, I won't give it away, but I am. All right, let's just roll.
We begin zooming around the cosmos, and we hear a day in the life of La'an. She's dealing with interpersonal conflicts, telling Spock he's annoying his neighbors with his harp, and dealing with Carol Kane's giant warehouse of stolen artifacts, which are property of the archaeology department, including a famous painting she stole from the Louvre. I'm surprised we don't see more stuff like this. Like some of the old artifacts, because like we keep antiques around, we only see them like one little thing in Kirk's office, but and of course Carol Kane being a vampire of some sort, like of course like she'd have a whole bunch of nonsense.
Yeah,
Very
I hadn't put that together, but I think it was someone who commented on the video and said that, you know, maybe her accent is she's going for like you said a Transylvania, Romanian kind of that old vampire.
She could be a vampire.
Area. Yeah, it's cool thought.
Which that actually fixed it a little bit for me. It's super fun, and actually this episode, I think she tones down the accent a little bit.
I was going to say, I think there were notes, network notes.
I think she pulled back on the accent, and I'm just going to put this context in here. We'll talk about it later. She lived in rural Vermont. I grew up in rural Vermont, so it is. I have a lot of feelings about it, but
the Keith Varney of it all.
Yes. But her performance as the crazy old lady running a shop in Vermont. That's very Vermont. That felt incredibly authentic. All right, so she points out that she actually has a bunker in Vermont, in case this whole no money socialist utopia thing turns out to be a fad. Hilarious, and makes perfect sense. Like because she's lived, because she said she was like there from like Pythagoras, so she's full on lived through the rise and fall of many empires, so like why would she think that the Federation would kick around for that long?
La'an's face here, she's definitely in need of some sort of a vacation, Keith. Some stress relief, if you will.
Maybe beating up Dr. Mbenga.
Yeah.
Later, she aggressively beats up Dr. Mbenga, and she's going hard, and there are a lot of what look to be modernized Klingon weapons on the walls behind them.
Batleth, at least.
It's like, and I see a batleth, I see a mechlith. But like sort of sleeker, like if Apple made a batleth, that's what it would be. Very, very sleek.
This is our most advanced batleth yet.
There's only one spike, but that's all you need.
With like sexy 60 frames per second slow-mo over the...
Right. Just like shing. Yeah.
One piece of aluminium.
Only one button. No headphone jack.
All data tracked. Biosensors in every handhold.
It's got blood tooth.
Only $17 billion. Credits.
Yes. Show yourself to be the douchebag who has the first one walking down the street. Everyone
will we make a better
you.
one in 6 months? Hell yeah.
Yes. Can you turn it in and exchange? No. It's got blood on it.
All right.
Anyway, so Mbenga takes advantage of her being too aggressive and uses Wing Chun on her. That's what I was trying to reference. Who knows what other show I was talking about.
Yeah, it was your mistake because we were recording during the day and everybody knows we only Wang Chung tonight. So.
The metaphor for her anger and loneliness is obvious. But just as we leave, we see a shot of Mbenga, clearly demonstrating that he is too. It's a quick little thing. As she leaves, we just hover on his face for a second, and that dude looks haunted.
Well, he got the whole PTSD of it all an episode or two ago, right?
It's such a subtle little thing, but it was an amazing performance that carried so much weight in there that I bet most people didn't even notice. But the director just sits on him for just a split second long enough for us to notice that. I think it's a really good piece of really good piece of acting, really good piece of directing in nonverbal storytelling. It might not have actually even been in the script. I think he just did it, and she's like, "Ooh, I got to keep this." Anyway, very cool. So later, La'an walks the corridor, and there is a flash and a noise. And a dude in a 21st century suit falls down after having been shot by a bullet, not a phaser. He tells La'an, "You have to stop an attack in the past." He hands her a fancy gizmo and says, "You need to get to the bridge." And then dies. There's some sort of flash that overwhelms everything, which is universal code for you've been zapped into another universe or dimension. And La'an arrives on the bridge to find Kirk there instead of Pike. And he has an unfamiliar Delta, and she has no idea.
Oh, I didn't pick that up, the
is.
Delta. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's different because there's no Federation.
But the uniforms are the same?
And the ship is the same, and the technology is all exactly the same. Yeah, I'm just going to say, first off, there are a lot of questions I have about there are a lot of wormholes all over the place. I'm not sure I necessarily care, but I will be pointing them out as we go along.
Yeah, let's do that, because otherwise the wormhole section is going to be like tragic. I would say if we're operating in the assumption that of a multiverse, then all things are possible. All combinations are possible. And so I can go, okay, right?
Yeah.
But if there's like what rules are we playing by? That's what we're going to have to get into, because if we're playing Loki rules, have you watched Loki?
Yes.
Which is ostensibly kind of the same vibe, right? Then there's a correct timeline. So I'm assuming our reality is the correct timeline, and that's what the temporal police is. Okay.
Or at least it's the correct timeline for them. One would think there are other but that's the thing. The temporal police work linearly with time, whereas the multiverse happen on the other. So there would be a whole mess of different temporal police all trying to protect their timeline.
Right. Which is why my real wormhole of the episode is this timeline's Kirk, and I just feel like he's very flippant as to like his survival, or like, does he have any dedication to his ship? Does he have any urge or urgency to like get back to his thing? I know they have like one exchange of dialogue that sort of deals with it, but it's not satisfying to me.
Oh, yeah, I kind of got it though, because he starts out like, whatever, I'm just gonna go on a crazy ride. I'm gonna get beamed back to my thing. I don't really care. And then it slowly realizes, no, I want to be in the other one. So
I guess things are great in his timeline, and there aren't a lot of stakes. He's like, yeah, they can handle it. Well, I'll just take a.
Well, but we're out of time.
Yeah.
So time is not progressing where he is.
Well, and Keith, the ultimate rom-com fulcrum. Is she cute?
Well, that does really mess with your head a little bit. Anyway, in Act 1, we get a call from Spock, who in this universe is the captain of a Vulcan ship. And we find out that the Vulcans are at war with the Romulans and are losing. Kirk says, "Tough. We've got our own problems." And in this universe, we find out the Federation does not exist, and the humans are like, "We got nothing to do with all you fools." Which of course is what the Romulans are trying to accomplish to get to this version, so their humans are not messing with them. So La'an explains what's happening to Kirk. And she goes, she's got to go back in time and fix the timeline and stop the attack. Kirk is very much not on board. He tries to take the device, and of course, they hit the button, and they're zapped back in time to, I'm assuming, roughly our time, or maybe like a few years in the future. Mm-hmm. They smartly do not put a number on it, but I see that they've had time to build the bridge. I would like 2027. Or so, 26, something in that world would be my guess. So they have no phasers, communicators, or tricorders, and they find themselves in the middle of Toronto. Kirk thinks they're in New York, but it's profoundly too clean for New York. But La'an knows it's Toronto because she reads the big sign that says Toronto. And mentions, interesting, that Canada isn't called Canada anymore in her timeline. That's interesting. Why is Canada not Canada anymore?
sets of like futures or pasts or alternates, whatever, I always like to see the billboards because whenever they do New York, there's like fun made up New York Broadway shows. But here it's nothing too fun. There's a movie, Something is Bound for Blood. It's a fun one. I'm sure they're all in jokes, right?
I would imagine so, yeah. And they had to replace everything, obviously.
See as the Goat Sees. That's a beer.
See as the Goat Sees.
That's a beer one. Yeah, some cool stuff.
Tom Brady beer. But yeah, so all you see is a mirror reflection of Tom Brady back. He's like fixing his hair. Yeah. That's all you can see.
I'm back, baby.
Anyway, yes. So La'an knows it's Toronto. We've also find out that Earth in Kirk's timeline, has been destroyed.
It's like Hellscape style.
It's a Hellscape style. So they go off and search for clothes. Kirk has a funny but somewhat obvious bit with the revolving door. I was still on board.
Yeah.
But of course he's from...
I mean, it's very genre, right? So they're doing fish out
of
water.
It's fun. It's a bit of a Star Trek 4. Like, it was fun. I liked it. He's from space and, of course, has never seen a revolving door. They accidentally choose the same outfit.
So if I understood correctly, his timeline is basically Wall-E, right? They sent up a bunch of like humans who never lived on Earth and kind of living on the ship, and
they basically, his people, because they didn't have, I mean, spoiler alert, because they didn't have to go through the eugenics war, never really pulled their shit together. So they still got to space and still built exactly the Enterprise for reasons, but they just, they didn't do it. They didn't pull it together fast enough to save the planet or start the Federation yet. Anyway, so Kirk has to change and make another outfit, giving La'an a chance to woof him. I feel like he had a sandwich between the last time we saw him and now. Like, he's still he's pretty thin, but he at least looks healthy. They have no money, of course, so La'an comes up with a scheme to shoplift their clothes. Very clever, and I wonder how many new shoplifting incidents there will be because they came up with La'an's plan. Although I'm sure plenty have done that.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's not a unique idea taking place here.
No.
Set off the alarm and then run through. I mean, have you ever watched those videos of people trying to just blitzkrieg Best Buys, but the Best Buy security people have been given permission to gang tackle these people, and so it's just videos of people getting their asses handed to them at a Best Buy.
I have not shoplifted since I borrowed a specific magazine of a specific flavor in the early 90s.
I did a Tootsie Pop once when I was a kid, and I felt so guilty I went home and cried. I wept and wept and wept. But I ate that damn Tootsie Pop. I did eat the Tootsie Pop.
Well, I mean, you don't want it to go to waste. It grew up a tiny little pop. Like, all he wanted, it's like Toy Story. All he wanted to do was
I don't want your blood, Tootsie. Sorry. But I'll eat it.
Now, of course, my cable is a little bit frayed, so if I laugh too hard, it mutes you. It's weird. All right. Anyway.
Yeah.
So they toss their uniforms and realize they need some money. And Kirk has a plan. Apparently, he's a chess prodigy, and quickly wins what apparently is an unlimited amount of money playing street chess.
In a, you have to admit, too long chess montage? Because this episode is chock full of needle drops. I guess someone upped their use a licensed song budget. So they do a whole song of this chess montage. And I was
It'll all be great in a month.
Yeah.
I mean, well, but we have to show that he earned $10 million in street chess, because otherwise he can't afford to do all the things that they do.
Buy La'an 2 hot dogs?
But no, well, we'll track it. We'll track him. So La'an is surprised he's not a dummy. Then I can't imagine Shatner playing chess.
I know. I was like, well, and I kept envisioning this whole episode. I mean, I get the ramifications, but at this point, I'm thinking to myself, man, this would be so great if it was Pike, if this was a episode. I understand why they do it, but I'm like, isn't this Pike's show? This is his part. This is clearly everything he does is so Pikey in.
Well, but there's clearly
clearly it's Kirk and
we're laying track for in 5 years or 6 years when we have to kill off Pike and we want to continue the show.
Yeah, that's a good point. And apparently we'll be laying pipe momentarily.
Well, one might hope. So he spots a hot dog cart
and a sepia filter.
I know, right? But I actually really like the visual. I because it feels very different. It feels like a different time.
Yes, I really loved the cinematography of this episode. I would say that I did. I don't know if it was my copy and then I checked back on Paramount. It was the same, but the location miking isn't great. Like his audio levels are weird though this episode, but
weird.
That's not.
I didn't notice that. I don't know. Maybe it was played really loud. We learn here that Toronto hot dog buns are really weird. Those Canadians and their giant whole grain hot dog buns look like a Subway sub with a hot dog in it. I mean, it looked good, but I don't want whole. I'm eating a hot dog. Don't give me whole grain.
I was thinking to myself, if you grew up on a starship, the way he's so comfortable in this Earth, he knows how to manipulate the hot dogs and stuff, and that was starting to bother me. But then I realized, clearly they have
hot dogs.
Well, not hot dogs, but the hollow sweets. So he's probably at least.
Well, they don't have them yet.
Oh, so. Okay.
No, they definitely don't have holodecks yet.
All right, so there are some. So if he doesn't,
but he's gone to other planets and
that's a good point.
A food cart is kind of a food cart. I can't imagine it's wildly different.
I'm just pointing out weird. If you go to the fish out of water stuff, then it's and I don't know how to use a revolving door. There's other things that.
Oh well, wait till we get to the car chase. Yeah.
Right. I don't know how to drive a stick. You don't. Let me tell you. You don't learn to drive. I don't care how many planes you've piloted or starships. If you can't drive a stick, it takes you a month.
Well, I don't think it was manual transmission. I think he just didn't know how to get it into drive. We'll get there. So there's a moment.
Do they make cars that sporty that aren't stick shifts?
Yeah, there's hardly any stick shifts anymore. Come on, old man. They barely even make them anymore.
I have a Star Trek trope too that I want to talk about, but we'll get there.
All right, we'll get there.
Not Star Trek, every sci-fi. Okay,
well, yeah. So we have a moment looking at the sunset, reinforcing that Kirk's Earth has been destroyed. He really wants to give her the hot dog. Shatner's Kirk would have already. So apparently the mission isn't urgent enough to skip getting what must be the most insanely expensive hotel room in all of time. Mm-hmm. I have no idea how much money is exchanged I don't think this much money is exchanged in a month in the chess games in Union Square to pay for this hotel room. Because Toronto, every bit as expensive as New York City.
So this just made me think. We don't have to spend a long time on this tangent, but all the future stuff we do and on space and stuff, isn't it interesting that bed technology never advances? We just sleep on a mattress, right? Shouldn't we be floating? Isn't there something better for our back than just mattress technology from the 21st century? It must improve.
At least this is a real bed. I mean, on Next Gen and Deep Space Nine is a little plank they sleep
That's what I'm saying.
With no blankets and a pillow.
Where's the future My Pillow guy? Right? Isn't there somebody whose life mission was we gotta do better for beds?
My Pillow. We just took out the gravity and put you in a box.
All right, so she's maybe I'll go booty call. But then she's no booty call. But then he's I wish you had booty called.
That's 100% what happens. I described it thusly. Lon wakes up in the middle of the night and pervs on Kirk for a bit. The musical is all lush and romantic for people who have known each other for about 4 hours. Mm-hmm. The harp glissandos are flying. But the music that should have been playing was Boom Chicka Wah Wah.
Which is fine. We're not being pretty. They're both clearly into it, right?
No, sure. But it's the musical score said this is some great love story, when really they're just hey, we're both single, we're just hanging out, let's bang.
That's the flip-flop of that, which I think they actually I think it's her performance, actually.
It gets there.
It totally gets there. But here on, I'm it's cool for them to just they're both young, hot people. Why can't they be into each other physically? But it's clearly they're trying to do a rom-com,
Well, and I really don't mind. I mean, I actually think they successfully get there.
I do
that she's
believe.
Actually in love. But at this point in the process, she just saw him with his shirt off and went, woof.
Yeah, they don't,
like, it's not...
And she didn't really work with him in the last episode, so she doesn't even know his sort of surrogate. But also, I bring up the rom-com sort of genre thing, but also, we talk about this show and giving slight nods to other properties. You can't see this episode, in my opinion, not think Quantum Leap. We get jumped to a random time space, and we have a mission that we don't know what the mission is, but we have to do this mission in order to beam out of there. Because that button don't work until we do whatever it is supposed to do, which is... Right. We have to talk about that.
Very Quantum Leap. But, I just want to, say at this point in the process, because we're basically just, picking apart wormholes, that kind of stuff. All the wormholes, yes, that's all true. That's all sort of grating on me. I'm 100% in at this point. I'm having a blast.
Well, yeah, for those of you who don't know, I love Quantum Leap. It's probably my number one. So, yeah, me too. And I love her, and I think he's great in this episode. And it all does work. I think it works in spite of itself in some places, and I think that's a testament to it.
It's and maybe that's it. I had a blast watching this episode both times.
That said, I'm a sucker for rom-coms, and I'm a sucker for Quantum Leap. So it's really hard for me to not like this.
I love the fish out of water time travel thing. So and the performances are great. It's shot beautifully. Anyway, just pointing out before people are like, oh God, he hated it. Not at all. Mm-hmm. I actually really enjoyed it.
But there's fun stuff to talk about because it's not on the ship. There's a lot of unique things, and so those are things we're going to point out.
Yeah, lots of stuff here. So the next morning, La'an is trying to remember the 21st century to see what might be different here. It'd be like us, trying to remember 1800s. What do us dummies remember about the 1800s?
This is the scene in particular where I'm like, oh, now that he's like, you know what, my mission is to hook up with this girl. It seems like he don't have any care in the world about getting back. Although he does say here, he's like, it seems to me like if we do what you want, I don't exist anymore.
No, absolutely. And that his motivation is not really to support her mission, because if she succeeds, his entire existence is wiped out. So Kirk is not as focused. He knows that if they fix the timeline, his is wiped out. So he's not exactly happy to have his entire universe wiped out.
Because they're still in his timeline, right?
Well, they're in both of their timelines because they diverge at the attack.
I don't understand that.
So all right. So looking back from the end of the episode.
So it's not multiverse?
No, it's not multiverse. These are two threads on the same timeline. So basically, we find out at the end, it's all about killing Khan and preventing the eugenics wars. So her timeline is if Khan happened and the eugenics wars happened, and his timeline is if it didn't happen.
How can they both exist then?
Because she's got the gizmo that pulls her out of the timeline.
Pulls her out of her timeline.
She is out of her timeline no longer exists, but the gizmo protected her from that.
Gotcha.
She's in a little bubble outside of time.
So she has the potential, gotcha.
She's trying to restore her timeline, and it will kill his timeline because Khan will have happened. Mm-hmm. That sort of a deal. So it's not multiverse. It's different branches in the single timeline.
So they jumped into her timeline back in time. His timeline back in time.
Well, it's both of their timelines until Khan is killed.
Gotcha.
Then they split.
They went to the branch.
Exactly. So it branches when Khan dies. Mm-hmm. Up until this point, it's exactly the same timeline. Hope that makes sense. So so Kirk thinks my best option is kind of to do nothing. So I might as well just joke around and drink and try to
get some Four Locos out of the mini fridge.
Get some Four Locos and see what we can get going with La'an. But La'an is like, hey, my timeline is better than yours. I also wrote down once again, what is this hotel room? Good Lord, look at that thing. That's
Toronto
$2,000 a night.
Toronto is very nice.
Toronto's super. Yeah, but that's $3,000 a night hotel room?
Different time, buddy. You ever played chess?
I mean, I have played chess.
Not well enough, Keith.
Yes. Well, I'm very familiar with the Union Square chess hustlers that they're referencing here. They don't actually have tens of thousands of dollars just sitting around there to be taken.
You gotta get in those back room games.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't. Anyway. we see the giant bridge behind them in the windows. We've now seen it a couple of times, so it's Chekhov's bridge, and it must blow the hell up. Boom. Great effects here. A lot of
frames. Okay, there we go.
I love that shot.
Yeah, cool.
They did a really good VFX of all of that. And La'an realizes, hey, you know, when the guy said get to the bridge, this is the bridge we're talking about, not the bridge of the Enterprise. So in Act 2, they arrive at the rubble. They join a bunch of onlookers who are allowed to get way closer than anyone would in real life.
Not a siren to be heard.
Yeah, I feel like they probably would have cordoned that off just a little harder than a couple. There'd be a few more people and a few more barriers. Anyway, remember
maybe a few more cameras, but it's just that one.
A few more cameras, you'd think. And our friend here wouldn't have a perfect ramp she can climb from the debris that they let people climb around on the debris like an hour after the bridge blew up. Anyway, but what's interestingly, both La'an and Kirk remember this bridge being destroyed in their timelines. Mm-hmm. So this is not the attack that branched off the two timelines. Meanwhile, La'an notices an odd scorch mark on a piece of rubble being loaded into a van, and she gets a closer look by borrowing the camera from the lady taking pictures. And she can tell that the damage is from a photonic bomb, which won't be invented for over 100 years. So, of course, we need to follow the van, so Kirk steals a Mustang to chase it. What type of Mustang? A Dodge Mustang, and we see that logo. Apparently, they are not going to dodge those product placement checks. He also mentions Plummox Soup, which we've heard of in Deep Space Nine, although he mispronounces it, or at least it is different. Kirk, here's where we go. Kirk demonstrates that he can barely get the car to go, and then it is immediately a professional stunt driver.
Yeah. Like Baby Driver style.
Yeah, he's like, because of course he's had all sorts of experience driving these type of cars and is a superhero. Whatever. So behind the scenes, they apparently got motion sick filming this because they used the AR video nets around the stationary car.
Yeah.
So everything we're seeing here is in camera. It's not green screen. So as they're in the stationary car, the world is whipping around them, and they got themselves pretty sick. Which is I could understand why. They banter about their names while they're in a car chase, and she realizes that Kirk has never heard of her name or the horrors that Noonien Singh or her family wrought across the universe. This is very important. The van starts going away. Cue the car chase. It's oddly obvious that a lot of the footage was filmed with slow driving and then sped up, like 80s TV style. And then we have the second use of contemporary music during the chase.
Needle drop loud.
Yeah, I didn't hate it. I mean, it's a little weird to have contemporary music in Star Trek, but I'm like, you know what? That's fine. I don't mind it. The cops, of course, find them and chase them down. The van gets away and Kirk is arrested. But, they get rescued by the camera lady who cop shames them, pretending that Kirk is a civil rights attorney that's being targeted for being an American, like somehow anybody can tell he's an American versus a Canadian.
I think the point is that they didn't want to deal with the hassle.
Well, they get called off, right? Mm-hmm. But like her gambit there, like, oh no, those police are abusing that wildly handsome, clearly rich white guy.
We took the point. We
got the point. I feel like there could have been like one other pass at that. Like, I see what they're trying to do, but it's kind of undercut by the Kirkness of it all.
Yeah, they could have had them be arresting her too, and she could have used her as the out, you know?
Absolutely, yeah. No, exactly. It's just like, if this were Mbenga driving the car, that would land. I think that would make sense. Mm-hmm. It doesn't quite make sense here. But whatever. The whole episode, none of it really makes sense. It's still fun.
Yeah. Well, which is a key ingredient, right? We talk about that a lot on the other show. It's like it's not a specific recipe. It's more of like an alchemy, right? You need like a dash of technobabble that makes sense. You need a pinch of
soupçon
of like sensicalness, and then and there's like a poof of fun. And if the ratio is wrong, it can throw the whole thing off.
Yeah, and the souffle rises despite the fact that the ingredients don't really make a lot of sense. So anyway, the cops are called away. It works. And she says, I rescued you because you were following the van. And we find out she's a alien conspiracy theorist, very popular these days. Mm-hmm. Her theory is that aliens are blowing up and assassinating people throughout history as a way of dividing us so that it delays the cooperation of the humans. And that an international cabal of governments are covering up the alien attacks in exchange for advanced alien tech, including a cold fusion reactor hidden in the city. Cool, right? This makes a lot of sense, especially if they're time traveling aliens trying to slow us down. Mm-hmm. And she points out a whole bunch of our historical, like the Kennedy assassination and Chernobyl, that all of these things were ways that they divided us. Interesting.
Why not just kill us?
That's a good point. I think it probably would have been more effort than just pippin' and poppin', because especially if you're time traveling, it's hard to time travel an entire fleet of to wipe us out. I guess I could have done it with a biological weapon, but that's not what we did. That's not what we did, Mike.
So Khan is human.
Yes. Oh. Khan is a genetically engineered human. Yes. Right. So I feel like this character is a bit of a take on Sarah Silverman's character on Voyager. Anyway, so they decide to go eat at a diner. And Kirk is in love with poutine, which, of course, Mike, is a reference to Canadian William Shatner. Shatner being from Quebec, where poutine is a big old deal. Have you ever had poutine, Mike?
Oh, I love poutine. Poutine it in my belly.
You. Weirdly, for somebody who grew up 40 minutes from the border, I don't think I've ever had it.
It's one of those things. It's disco fries. Yeah,
I've been to Montreal a whole mess of times, but never did it. Anyway, the lady shows them a bunch of photos on her iPad, and they immediately recognize a Romulan ship. It's the Romulans. Silverman leaves, but thanks them for listening in an oddly heartfelt little moment there.
Sorry, I'm a little behind. I was talking about poutine.
Poutine. It is interesting how good an undercover agent
she is. Yeah.
To have that little emotional moment about thanks for listening, that was really honest and really it rang really true. To have that be a fake, she's good.
She's so much of a better version of, there's different stakes at play. But remember that episode of Deep Space Nine where we go back to Earth during the war, right before the war popped off, and we had Ron Howard's brother play the alien conspiracy theorist, who they were let's make them special needs instead of Here they have her play the tropes of an alien conspiracy theorist so to the letter that we just chalk them into a certain stereotype we have, a pre-existing stereotype we have, or had, I guess. And it works perfectly to kind of disarm us about what her other potential motives could be.
And they're talking about her afterwards by saying, she's not actually, she has no idea how close she is to being right. Mm-hmm. Which is I thought
this was very deftly handled, because to be frank, when she shows up again, I was not ready for that.
No, I did not. I expected her to show up again. I did not expect her to show up again in that role.
Yes, I definitely thought she was going to be a protagonist.
Yeah. So they decide to search for the cold fusion reactor, which Kirk apparently just now remembers is about to blow up in a few days, wiping Toronto off the map.
Wait, it's September 10th? Oh, you know what?
Oh, hey, yeah. But how does he remember this for the first time now? He's like, oh, I definitely remember the bridge blowing up, but remember 3 days later the entire city gets wiped off the map? I forgot about that until just now. not.
That's a full wormhole.
That's like, a big old wormhole.
It's a whoa.
Might have buried the lead there. Yeah, I was like, oh, I totally remember my dad stubbed his toe before he exploded, but I forgot about the exploded part. I totally stubbed his toe.
Like you said, this there are sequences, and this is one of them, where it feels a little. What's that game you play where like I'll tell a part of the story and then you tell a part of the story, then I'll tell a part of the story. Like we trade back and forth, and so character's not acting consistent. His intellect isn't consistent here.
Well, his knowledge isn't consistent.
You know what, Keith?
I think.
His brain you get a little scrambly when you go through the time buzzer portal.
Maybe that's it. Sure. It starts
like
coming in.
Sam when he goes through every time he leaps, he kind of forgets a little bit more of his past and who he is.
Or he's matrixing, right? Because like he had to download the how do you drive a Mustang like a professional driver, and then like download when did Toronto blow up.
No, this is definitely more. It's more Quantum Leap. They even have Ziggy. They have the little beep boop 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 boop, the little computer thing.
There you go. That's what it was.
It's a Quantum Leapian rom-com, is how I've genre'd this.
You know what it is? He's distracted because all he wants to do is get Ziggy with it with La'an. So
he wants to let's get it La'an. You missed. That was the low-hanging fruit. We've missed it.
Oh my goodness!
Let's get it La'an. Hold on, I need my.
Great. This is worth our time.
Get it all La'an.
Okay,
Sorry,
now that's just
too
terrifying.
Low. It's too low.
Wow, that just went very dark. Anyway, so the important part of this
tell me, please,
is La'an does not remember Toronto blowing up. So they realize this is what splits the timeline, is Toronto blowing the heck up. So they need to find the reactor. So to find it, they need a tricorder, and they forgot to take one. And neither of them has any engineering skill to make one themselves. But then, La'an, don't go too far, La'an remembers there might be an engineer. I might just know somebody, and I might know where she is in the home state of Vermont. They take a Vermont taxi proudly displaying its Ford logo to an old building named the Archaeology Department. Let me be very clear. There are about 4 cabs in all of the state of Vermont, and they will not take you to this location.
If you got that chess money, though.
I mean, the chess money. Yeah, we're gonna get there. But the rest of it, the look of this place, and Carol Kane rings absolutely true. I know this lady. I know several of these ladies in Vermont. Yes, Carol Kane in this performance is the embodiment of a good subset of Vermonters. So I'm like, yes, absolutely. But apparently they had enough money to bribe a border agent, which I imagine would be pretty difficult post 9/11. So that chess, I didn't see him having a wheelbarrow of cash after the chess thing, but
yeah.
So they had enough money to bribe a border agent, but still had to take 4 buses. They could have taken a private jet. They say to Carol Kane, I know who you are, and we need your help. So in Act 3, packed in Kane's store, there are a whole mess of antiques from all over history, including many that we saw earlier, of course. And they found her using DuckDuckGo. Take that, Google. You know, Kirk's going to search. He's going to search secure. He doesn't want Google to know he's searching for Carol Kane. Let's be honest.
That was such a fun pull. Very fun pull.
Oh, hilarious. They vaguely explain what the deal is. They say that we need an engineer. And she's like, I work retail. I know nothing about engineering. I love that beat.
She is, for as trepidatious as I was in her first appearance, they used her just enough in this episode, and she was excellent.
And logically, like to be able to pop in on her because she lived forever. Obviously they set it up to be able to do this, but I thought that was like, it's great. I mean, we do that with Guinan, and it's really, really fun. Really, really fun to play that way. So big fan of that concept. She knows nothing about engineering. I haven't taken a math class since Pythagoras made it up. Ha. She also thought that cold fusion was fake, like Bigfoot and lasers. Really funny stuff. Like,
great stuff, and I think it shows a really interesting quirk in that, we jump timelines. Of course, Kirk is a starship captain. So-and-so is a this, so-and-so is that. Everything's going to be the same, right? Well, not necessarily. That's an assumption you're making. They assumed she was going to still be an engineer and know all engineering, but that's...
But no. We're in the right timeline. What we learn here is she becomes an engineer after this.
Oh,
and always did.
Oh, because so maybe they sparked it.
But maybe they incepted it.
Oof.
That's right.
It's a little confused. It's a lot for my brain.
No,
right
but it makes sense because like if you live for thousands of years, you're probably going to just out of sheer boredom take on different occupations and learn new things.
Oh, this is our timeline.
This is our timeline.
We've hopped Kirk out of his.
No. Once again, here, hold on. I need a marker. And
right,
some
but
paper.
I thought his Earth was blowed up. He couldn't go to his Earth.
Hold on. Do I have a Sharpie around here somewhere? I know that I do. Okay, so.
Okay,
Mike.
I'm ready.
Okay, so here is the regular timeline, right? And we are here in the single timeline, right? And all of this is the same for everybody. It's the same for our Kirk. It's the same for our La'an.
Oh, but we just weren't born yet. Kirk wasn't born.
Kirk wasn't born yet.
Right, gotcha.
So what happens is on this timeline right here, the incident happens. Toronto blows up, right, in this situation, causing there to be a split in the timeline. So here's Kirk and here's La'an in their two different timelines. So anything before that is still exactly the same. And
but
so
why does that cause a split in the timeline?
Because Toronto blowing up kills Khan.
Gotcha.
And without Khan and the eugenics wars, the Federation would never have been created.
So the only difference here is that we are here. Because Lady with the camera would have followed the van anyway. She would have got into Noonian Laboratories a different way. And
no, well, yes, because the Romulan lady is also a time traveler, trying to monkey with the regular timeline, creating the alternate timeline, which is Kirk. So so the Toronto never blows up in our regular timeline.
Right.
So the Romulans send somebody back to blow it up, thus creating the secondary timeline where Khan didn't live.
So now we're going back again to intercept her.
We're going back again to fix it.
Gotcha. Okay, cool.
This
was necessary. We should have did this at the top.
So does this make sense to you now?
More sense, yes.
Okay, so I'm going to try to put this in like Back to the Future.
Biff
goes back.
Let's go. Carol came. We got to get to the tritanium watch.
Okay, all right, there we go. So La'an mentions that tritium is part of cold fusion, and Carol Kane knows exactly where you can find some of that in the glow-in-the-dark strips on some old watches from the 80s.
Do you remember what they were called? Because I do. It has my last name. Remember Indeglio?
Is it Indeglio? Is that what they call it? Mm-hmm. I mean, we both definitely had a glow-in-the-dark watch.
You kidding me? Indeglio. I was like, yes, get me my money. I thought I was related, but no.
I had the ugliest sweatshirt in human history that was like a glow-in-the-dark like splatter painting of a skateboarder that I wore like every day. Oh
Skate
my God,
or die.
I didn't skateboard to save my life, but I had this glow-in-the-dark sweatshirt that I wore like 4 times a week. It's amazing I didn't make out with more ladies. Anyway,
they realized
I did not get it on with anything for a very long time. So they realized that the glow-in-the-dark strips will glow because it'll be reactivated when it gets near tritium. So they arrive back in Toronto, apparently being able to bribe the Canadian border agents as well. They're easier. All you have to say is you're going to a hockey game. And in my childhood, we did that all the time. So they didn't even check our passports. Pre 9/11. But they're just like, hey, we're going to go to a hockey game. All right, have a good time, eh? So apparently, their plan to save the universe is to leisurely walk around Toronto on foot until the watch glows. But do it really slow and stop and have romantic makeout sessions too, because, no worries, the city's only going to explode in a day or two. What are you doing? So Kirk says he kind of wishes he could live in La'an's timeline instead of his own. And La'an's like, no, let's try that. Let's figure out a way to do it, which means, of course, what does it mean, Mike?
2 Kirks.
Kirk's got to die is what it means.
Well, I mean, there's a Thomas Riker. He could maybe come in and grow a goatee and, bang on the weekends.
It's possible. Yeah, no, I don't. But
meanwhile, somewhere in an alternate dimension on that ship, they're like, is he coming back?
Yeah, that's right. He's been in the bathroom for a really long time.
Which way should we go?
Man, he's been pooping for 2 days. All right. So in this scene, though, I mean, again, the logic of this makes very little sense, but I really like this beat here because La'an does express some vulnerability and says that Kirk is special. This Kirk is very special because he's not aware of her scarlet letter. Because the whole thing never happened. So she feels completely different with him because he doesn't know that.
Yeah, and it's such a cool moment. I mean, I'm not even as deep into Trek as people who know these things, and even I know the Khan of it all. And so Kirk v. Khan, right? That's sort of the whole freaking. That's like He-Man and Skeletor in many ways, and here we have them making out in a way. So it's kind of it's a cool twist and a really a neat thing to do.
That's some fanfic we never expected. So they make out for a bit before noticing that the watch is glowing. The magic of their love made the cold fusion plan be right next to them. Because Toronto's a really big city, and by foot, you're not going to cover very much of it, especially strolling and making out. However,
that's the other thing. Doesn't the light in the dark thing glow anyway because it's nighttime?
No, because the glow-in-the-dark tritium has a short, or the other thing other than tritium has a short half-life, and after it only lasts about 20 years. So if you go back and if I were to put on my puff paint skateboarder thing, it would not glow anymore.
That's still risky. That's really. But hey, it worked. It's all good.
Sure, whatever. So they go into the building and discover a man going into a locked room guarded by a biosensor. La'an notices the building is labeled Noonien Singh Institute and correctly guesses that her DNA will get her through the door. Cool. But not too fast, because Sarah is there with a gun. Surprise. She says, let's go inside. Kirk realizes that she must be the one we're looking for, and that she is also from the future. She says, my people have been slowing human progress, but we've been working too slowly. She's like, we gotta go harder, guys. We're not doing our job.
So she's fringe of the fringe.
Exactly. She's like, she wants to go hard. Because she's a Romulan. Kirk says, go ahead, shoot us. If you fire, it'll set off alarms and call security. I'm not sure how we knew that. Do we have alarms that will go off when a gunshot happens?
Well, if you're doing biometric sensors, you probably have to assume there's a Waze camera somewhere.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, they're definitely dealing with alien tech at this point, so fair enough. It says, go ahead and shoot us. She's like, all right, and shoots him dead. Because Kirk must die, but the alarm does go off. Sarah pushes La'an through the door, and she seems like she might be super strong. Here's a question for the folks out there. I probably should know this, but maybe I don't. Are Romulans super strong like Vulcans? I would assume they probably are because they share a lot of the genes.
Never got to bang.
You know what? If you're in a hotel room with Kirk, take your shot, guys. Take your shot. That is the message of this episode. So in Act 4, they fight their way down a series of corridors. but Sierra explains that we're not here to blow up the reactor anymore. We're going to do Plan B. So we're going to go towards the genetics laboratory because we're going to find out what this is all really about. La'an starts to put it together. They see children's drawings and they arrive at a room labeled Khan. Uh-oh. Sierra says, open it. So La'an figures out she's here to kill Khan. The future Romulans used a computer simulation to show that killing Khan would prevent the humans from pulling their shit together after the war and starting the Federation. It's crazy that the whole point of this is to make sure the calamity happens, as opposed to prevent the calamity. She says
so. It's like to just analog it. Yeah. Don't stop the Nazis because that leads to us developing the bomb, which such and such and such. Like you could.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because if you stop the Nazis before World War II, there's no NATO.
Right.
Or whatever, and like, oof, God. I mean, it really is messes with your head when you think through that, but they have a simulation that proves that this is actually the consequence, because otherwise we wouldn't know. So,
and what's great too, and from a storytelling perspective, all the nonsense aside, is that's a grand concept. That is a grand scale concept. Yet it has very, very, very intimate personal implications for La'an specifically, and so you get both of those types of storytelling.
Which is what makes this a better episode, because of the personal connections there, and the sort of humanity of it on a personal level, as well as the giant. That's great. So she says there have been tons of people trying to mess with the timeline, including the temporal wars. Which we might see in a later series.
Oh, so that's that's the question I had for you. Is all the time stuff new? Is that a new thing? Because remember I've been asking of this show. I know it's really beholden to lore, but I'm looking for new, fresh concepts, new, fresh Trek, the jet things. But this isn't that.
Well, I think it is. I think it's just tied to a lot of other things. I think it's a new story. I like the story. But yes, the temporal wars is something we see on Enterprise.
But the temporal police we come to meet. The temporal
police,
force.
We've definitely seen before, yes.
That's a cool show. Give me that show.
They might be working on that. I mean, they should be. Anyway. But she points out that time keeps pushing itself back on track. So that the eugenic wars were supposed to happen in 1992. But they got pushed back. And that time got messed up, trapping Sierra here for 30 years on Earth, which is why she is really good at mimicking real humans. But this idea of people monkeying with time, but then it's slowly correcting itself back to its original destination, that's a very Stephen King concept. But that closes a major wormhole in the Trek timelines. Now it makes, because we know from the original series that this is supposed to happen in 1992. Well, it doesn't. This explains finally why the timeline got moved.
Interestingly, Keith, conceptually, do you know what the number one pop song of 1992 was?
I do not know.
So now we've come to the end of the road. Still I can't let go.
I got time out, right?
So
it's unnatural.
Which actually thematically kind of fits with this whole thing. So
yeah, we're near the end of the road for this episode, mercifully for us. But anyway, I really liked that whole concept, and I liked that fixes a lot of stuff. It fixes so many different timeline issues that people are trying to monkey with it, and so it's a shifting target. It's always moving and changing, which would make sense. So anyway, La'an says Sierra tells Sierra what her real name is, and that Khan's legacy is genocide, torture, and me. Fascinating.
Powerful, yeah.
Sierra says, if we kill him, because you're protected out of the timeline with your device there, you can live your entire life without Khan being a part of it. You can live your life as this Kirk saw you. And so, like, that is a very
Sophie's
tempting,
choice. Yeah.
really tempting thing, I would imagine, and very, very quick for
I'd
for
imagine
Sarah
it
to,
would have
like-
been more tempting if he hadn't been dead.
That's true. Yeah, that's true too. So, anyway, she's like, nope.
Yeah.
So they
I
fight.
learned Tai Bo at the beginning of this episode. I gotta use it.
Yeah, I gotta use it. I totally learned jazzercise. So look out! I'm gonna totally kick your butt. So they fight, punch, and Sarah forces La'an to open the door into Khan's room, and they keep fighting. Eventually, La'an gets the gun and shoots Sarah. Then Sarah presses.
That was a lot of murder in a short period of time.
A lot of people died. Sarah pushes the vaporize me button and dusts, which is technology we have seen before.
So
from
that's
the
like the
Romulans.
cyanide pill?
That's the cyanide pill,
Okay.
except it erases all the genetic materials. Like
Existence of you, yeah.
it's a really smart thing to have, especially for time travel warriors, to really dust yourself. Cool, good effect, liked it. La'an's device turns green. She fixed it, but she can't stop herself from going in to meet Child Khan. He's just a little boy at this point, and he's sprayed with Romulan blood. And he asks, "Are you going to rescue me?" She cleans off the blood, but says, "You know what? You're right where you need to be." Oof. Tough. I mean, this, is like, what would you do if you, it's the eternal question. What would you do if you found baby Hitler?
Yeah.
It's like, oof. Anyway, she presses the button and returns home.
They're like, make sure you get a cute kid.
The cutest kid in all of existence. She goes to the bridge and sees that her timeline has been restored, and goes back to her quarters to find a temporal agent waiting for her.
Tell me about it, stud. You're the one that I want.
Wow. Yeah, she had some Toronto loving,
Yeah.
almost. So she finds the temporal agent waiting for her. And the temporal agent says, thanks for saving the universe. But you can't tell anybody what happened from this timeline. Which leaves open, can she talk to Carol Kane about it? Because Carol Kane would remember this happening. So I bet you could.
That's cool. That's cool. Reverse.
But
wormhole.
also, give me back my time gizmo.
Mhm.
She mentions that only La'an could have done this mission because her DNA. That's how they got into Khan's room and got into the building. So it had to be her, which is really cool and interesting. So she decides.
Is
then
she
to
like
zo-
is she sort of like tacitly a time agent now?
I mean, I don't
We're
know.
gonna
Are they
revisit
gonna
this like we
are they
revisit
gonna
other
call
episodes.
her back in?
Yeah, that's
I
what I'm
don't
saying.
know. Who knows? I mean, there's only 20 episodes of the entire series
That's
so far.
the thing. That's the
There's
thing.
going to be more. We'll see. So she decides to Zoom her alternate boyfriend, Kirk, and does a terrible job of pretending that she had a real reason to call him. But he's like, yeah, I don't know this lady, but she seems weird, but she's cute. Maybe let's have a drink.
But I think the motivations are very clear there. I mean, we've all been like, well, maybe not all of us, but if you've ever been dumped, like unceremoniously and kind of abruptly, you go through that sort of period of like, well, let me just say, I don't want to use the word crazy out of turn, but you go through a little bit of an obsessive.
You go and you hit on her sisters?
Obsessive period where you're like, they're like, you should probably like, no, I don't want to hear from you anymore. And you're like, just one more email. Are you sure about this? Like, I understand her impetus to give him a buzz here.
Oh, no, I totally understand. Like,
And it's
her
heartbreaking.
emotional
It's
story
heartbreaking.
here.
Is
yeah.
she the O'Brien, Keith?
She might be the O'Brien. She's got to suffer a lot. And after she hangs up, she breaks down. The loneliness returns, reinforced by having to...
How could he not love a face like that?
Oh my God, yeah. Her loneliness is reinforced by having to choose to allow Khan to live. and is carrying a universe-saving level secret. So not only does she have to choose to let Khan live, she has to carry this all as a secret, thus isolating her even further. And she has a sort of a heartbreaking breakdown at the end. Very emotionally satisfying, even if the logic makes no sense. So we've talked about it a lot, but maybe let's just do like our top 10 wormholes in the plot in a segment we call...
Punch it! Punch it!
Punch it!
Punch it!
Punch it! Punch it, we can beat him.
Punch it! Punch it!
Let's punch it.
Punch it! Let's get the hell out of here!
Punch it! Punch it!
Punch it, Huxley!
Punch it! Punch it, Bishop!
Punch that shit!
Punch it, punch it, punch it!
Just punch it, man! Just punch it!
Punch it, punch it, punch it!
Let's punch it.
Hit it.
Yo, Adrian! It's the Punchies!
It's like 12 minutes long. I'm gonna have to do the abbreviated version.
Really, just take your time. Oh, it's fun though. All right, so Mike, give me your top 5 wormholes.
I mean, we really kind of went through them. I think the Kirk's...
What is your number 1 wormhole from this?
Like I said in the beginning, and it's probably not the most effective. The one that stuck out to me the most was just how easy breezy he was with the whole stakes of the thing, and there was the lack of any sort of urgency. I mean, they're clearly they don't know what the mission is, but they are on an important mission. They're jumping through time, and it just seems the rom-com part I like, right? Because I like that genre, but it just there was a tonal inconsistency between the stakes and the urgency and what we see on screen, and like the whole thing developed. Mm-hmm. It's like you've got mail in the middle of Looper. You know what I mean? So that would probably be
where the stakes are like the universe, not just yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, for me, there's 2 of them that are the biggest one. One of them doesn't really matter, but the money of it all really grated.
Yeah,
me.
that one stuck right in your craw.
That really did stick in my craw. Like, I just don't like. There's so many different ways that they could make money with future knowledge. They could have like hacked an ATM or whatever and gotten all the money they need to go on all these adventures. But I really wanted to like shoehorn in this Kirk is not sort of the dumb frat boy
mm-hmm.
Kirk that we're sort of expecting him to be. So like I get it, and like you find a way to use intelligence to get your way. That's very Star Trek, right? But it is like the amount of money mess with. But that's sort of stupid. I think the one that really is sort of dings the episode a little bit is the casualness of finding the reactor, and that their solution to save the universe is to have a romantic stroll through Toronto that magically manifests.
And there is quite literally a ticking clock. I mean, they've got a couple days though, so that at least buys them a little bit of time.
Well, we don't know. Maybe. Like how
he
good
said
is...
3 days from now the thing blows up.
Does he remember the date?
Mm.
He didn't remember that it happened until an hour ago.
Well, actually, okay, I'll put that pin in when we get to the episode proper. But yeah,
so
no, I hear you.
For me, that was like they could have found a way to narrow it down to an area, then used the watch. I think that would have definitely fixed that for me. Let's go to best moment.
That's the thing. Despite that, there are some great effects. There are some great performances. I think both their performances are really strong. Hers, to me, is a little more effective. It could be because I think we know she's incredible. We've seen her range a lot more than we've seen his. What's the guy's name who's playing Kirk again?
It is. I really should know this. It's Paul Wesley.
And a shout out to the photographer / Romulan. I thought she was excellent in this episode and really she duped me and then was like a pretty good bad guy.
Yeah, Adelaide Kane.
With the best kind of bad guys whose motivations you can't really, you can punch a hole in them, but because like she killed a lot of people, but at the same time, I mean, it's like Thanos. Well, if you could promise that 60% of the people are going to live great lives if you do this one thing.
Well, but her motivations were just for the Romulan Empire to get rid of the Federation so they could take over.
Okay, but still, it's like by taking out one of the world's...
You get rid of Khan.
Yeah. It's like, you're like, well, I can't, So anyway, great performances. So, but, oh, man, it's tough for me because despite all of it, this is bizarre. This is bizarre. The moment where I was like, yeah, dude, I don't know how they did it, but they turned it around, is when they do the little kissy kiss moment. And I'm like, yeah, they did it. They nailed it. I bought it. Like they built
invested.
it. They built it enough that I was like, yeah, it's not just a bangy bang, and it's all of those things. Plus she gets to be who she is, and she gets to see herself through someone else's eyes and see the best version of themselves, which is kind of like what you're actually looking for in real romance. And it all clicked, and I was like, yeah. And so when he dies, somehow they built enough that when he does go, even though you kind of know he has to, it hits you, and it hit her. So a combination of those two moments, the make out and the die, which are the two most trite moments in that kind of genre, but they worked for me.
Yeah, I mean,
that's the sort of magic thing the episode does.
It's weird, but I agree with you, because I'll narrow it down a little bit more specifically. It's the moment that she realizes that he is not aware of her past or her family's past, and and definitely like she needs to go and talk to her therapist about not taking on your ancestors' shame, because she's not responsible for any of it. But it's like if your father was a serial killer, it's really hard to walk around, as like Ted Kaczynski's kid. Like, yeah, that's and like you have to really work hard to like separate your responsibility versus your ancestors. But I get it. But that moment of hope we see in her eyes, of freedom in her eyes, when he doesn't know who Khan is, and like it's not the healthiest in the sense that she needs to add some boundaries in there, but I get it. And I think it was a really interesting moment for the actor and for the character, and I bought it, and I understood all of why she became so enamored with this guy right away. And I think Paul Wesley's Kirk improved greatly from the first time we see him to this episode. I like this Kirk much more. It feels much Kirkier to me. So I like this version of Kirk now a lot more than I did the first time I saw him.
Cool.
So let's throw out some ratings, shall we?
You get some stamps. Hell yeah, they are self-sealing. Here are some stamps for you.
The latency between the two of us, Keith, is 0.011 seconds. So it's actually very low latency. Yeah. Because it's peer-to-peer, baby. Anyway, Video Ninja, check it out for all of your NDI bizarre, very specific niche needs. Yeah, so this episode is like an enigma to me, because as Keith and I demonstrably pointed out, there's a lot that is just sort of I don't want to say nonsensical, but doesn't make a whole lot of sense, or it doesn't really hold up to a lot of scrutiny. Let's put it that way. Mm-hmm. That said, I'm a sucker for time travel. Quantum Leap is my jam, and this is ostensibly a Quantum Leap episode. I love a rom-com. I love all shapes and sizes of rom-coms, and this has given me the best of rom-coms, right? You got the cheesy sort of walking to sunsets. You've got the strolling, oh, I'll get you a hot dog. Oh, I see you with your shirt off. I mean, it hits them all the notes. But they have great chemistry, and there's motivations for them to really... And the thing they avoid is I don't think I'm going to like you. I don't think I'm going to like you, but I'm begrudgingly am forced together with you, and now we've developed this. At least they show it right from the front. Because we know from the beginning, the two names, you're like, oh, Destiny doesn't want these two to be together because they're
right,
good
sure,
guy.
Yeah.
And so the balls to fly in the face of that, even though you kind of take it away at the end, you're still doing it. So I applaud them for the big swing of that, I think, with lore, because I imagine that'll be divisive to some. I doubt it, but whatever. Could be. Here's my questions overall, and I have to check my biases at the door. I like the serialized storytelling. That's just, I've gotten used to it in prestige TV. I am a fan of it in Deep Space Nine. It's why I'm loving Deep Space Nine. They do some great one-offs, but I love the big overarching huge political chess moves type of show episodes. And so all during this episode, you can see on the watch along, I'm talking to myself and I'm saying, I just wish the two things that were bugging me is that I didn't know any of the rules to the time travel, like when can we jump? When do we leap? Why are we here? Why us? All those are just questions in the beginning. Who's that guy, right, that gave us the doodad? We're just leapt into this adventure with no rules. It's like a horror film with no rules. And then the stakes felt weird because there was no real urgency. And so I will say the romance took me by surprise, and I got swept up in it. The stakes and the ramifications of Sophie's choice at the end was very powerful and had a lot to say. I think there's a lot thematically to discuss there about what makes us who we are, what is our role in all this, and what I think the most effective thing she said, right, is I thought was actually really cool, because it's not it's not that Khan living leads to the wars, that leads to this, that leads to a great peace. She said his legacy is me, right? And what she may become, and what the good she will do. And I thought that was like a really important message. And there's a huge conversation to be had around that. And then at the end, they retrofit in all the rules I was looking for. Oh, we picked you specifically for a specific purpose. Yeah. Our other dude gave you the doodad. We're taking it back, but we're here. There's a whole agency. We're watching you. We might come again. So they're leaving this little breadcrumb. So that was exciting too.
Yeah.
But here's I don't call it criticism, but here's my thing that I'm wrestling with. You only get 10 episodes, right? And we're using one of those episodes as a two-hander, and one of those two-handers, as far as I know, isn't even one of our main cast members, right? Could there be something more juicy we're doing with these episode space, with this hour of time, if we only get 10 hours each season? But like you said, if we're moving forward and we don't know what's going to happen, and also the whole point here is to keep it kind of episode to episode and limit the amount of serial storytelling taking place. So I can't fault something for not being what I want it to be when it has clearly stated what it's going to be.
It's specifically episodic. Like,
yes.
Strange New World is intentionally episodic.
Yes. And through that lens, hey, they did a genre episode. They took a lot of risks. They threaded a needle, and despite itself, all the faults we pointed out, you could forgive some of that in a rom-com, because if you look at it through a genre lens, those are genre beats. Those little quibbles we're pointing out, the hot dogs and the this and the sunset, we forgive it, Keith, because it's a well-worn trail that we've seen before. That's why we forgive those things. Is it my favorite episode? No. Did I really like it despite myself? Yes. Did I have a lot of fun? Yes. Was I moved? Yes. So I can't knock it as hard as I feel like I want to. I'm giving it 78 self-sealing stem bolts.
Yeah. Well, okay, so here's the thing. I've taken it to the woodshed with all of the sort of like wormholes and contrivances and little things, logical inconsistencies here and there. But I found the episode incredibly engaging. I was engaged by it. I enjoyed it from top to bottom. I really liked the sort of like timeline mechanics of the people trying to change the timeline and it fighting it back, and the complexities of all like the timeline stuff that, we're gonna have to take out a piece of paper to understand. I loved all of that. I think it's really interesting. It did some really good retconning. The performances are great. And even though it doesn't make much sense in some of the ways that they navigated our world, I thought it made emotional sense. I thought the idea of, can we escape the shame of our ancestors or our parents or whatever, to be one that we haven't explored a ton on Trek. Mm-hmm. And so that felt very fresh. And I thought the idea of her falling in love with somebody who just doesn't know about that, I found that whole thing fresh. I think Paul Wesley's performance was great. I think he did a much, much better job in the. I mean, he didn't do better. It just the character of Kirk was better written, better fully fleshed out. You know, I don't have a ton more to say about it than I've already said, other than setting aside all the nerdy stuff, I really had a good time watching this episode. I will have a good time watching this episode again. And a
lot of fun.
The purpose of this thing is to have this thing that you enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
And so I enjoyed the lightness of it. I enjoyed the sci-fi of it. I enjoyed the pathos of it at the end. So it's weird for me to say it, but like I finished it the first time I watched it. I'm like, that was awesome. I had such a good time watching that episode.
Longtime viewers will know, new viewers might not know. Keith is not usually into any sort of like romance. That's not usually your draw, right?
It's not what really sucks me in. And I didn't care about the romance, right? I cared about her relationship with her past and what and that the romance was a reflection of her relationship with her past family trauma. And so it came out of that. It wasn't just he's hot. Mm-hmm. And so, at the end of all of that, I'm going to surprise probably everybody, and I'm going to give this 92 stem bolts.
Wow! Hey,
self-sealing stem bolts, mind you, because that was really fun.
You know, I want to counter myself and point out though, like from a writing standpoint, if the kind of gauntlet you are running is that you've got this show that takes very specific place in a specific time and place before all the other stuff you've already created, but you want to leave it open-ended so that you can run it for as long as you are making money or that it's popular or whatnot. A good thing to do is to avoid plots that push time forward, right?
Well, and they fix a lot of the time problems. Mm-hmm. In this by because again, like Khan was supposed to happen in 1992. Well, he didn't, obviously, and so they fixed it, which in a way that felt fairly logical within itself.
But we got a whole like story of stuff happening and plot and people moving and growing and thing. But then we beam back and guess what? Nope, we have not a second, not nary second has gone by. So it's
good fun.
I like them, and I cannot avoid the spoilers that. Apparently this week, Keith's, there was a musical episode or something.
There's one there's a lot. There's craziness coming down the pipe. I'm excited for it. But before we do any of that, next week we're watching Among the Lotus Eaters. I have no idea what's going to happen. Probably going to eat some lotuses. But if you would like to eat more of our nonsense, Mike, what could they do?
1 hot dog, 2 hands, whatever you need. We've got lots. I didn't make it. Speaking of no sense. If you're digging what we're putting down, we're just we're clowning around, we're having a good time, we're watching Star Trek, guys. What better thing could you do with yourself but to just hang out with friends and watch stuff you like? Well, Keith and I are your buddies. Come watch with us. You can do so this coming weekend. We look at Star Trek toys. I don't know what we're doing this weekend, Keith, but we're gonna figure it out.
Nope.
Strange new show on Wednesdays. Cool stuff coming here in season 2. We've only got 7 more weeks together, folks.
That's right.
Out of Practice podcast. Guess what? The whole thing, David E. Kelly's entire series. We did this for every episode.
Single episode
on your podcast. You can listen to us watch every episode too. It's thousands of hours.
Forever.
K&M Geekly. That's our weekly chance to just talk with no, just even pretense of knowing what we're doing. We're just talking at each other about stuff. And then we've got Keith and Mike watch Deep Space Nine, and man, things are getting good. Apparently, mustachioed Cisco is coming into the picture this week. So
goatee,
go team, join the team. Patreon.com/K&M. Keith, I'm just gonna keep talking until you stop.
Yes, I'm gonna cut you off because it's time to say. Till then, this has been Strange New Show. Keith and Mike watch Star Trek: Strange New Worlds. Thank you for watching K&M Entertainment. If you enjoyed our particular brand of nonsense, please like and subscribe. Or become one of our patrons at patreon.com/K&M.